How long does it take you to write a feature script?
So the process of writing a feature script is hard to quantify in time because usually if I'm doing something I really care about, what usually happens is I think about it for about 6 months. I start to write down a few ideas. I ponder it for about 6 months. Then I start to write kind of an outline of it that might take a few days or a few hours, depending on how much I've thought through it in advance. And then once I sit down to write it, if I'm dedicated to it, usually a couple of weeks if I'm really, really focused on that. Now, most of the time it takes longer because I can't dedicate 8 hours a day to doing it. So most of the time it'll take 2 months or something more like that.
Do you usually end up talking yourself out of an idea?
Not too often. I mean, I guess I have many scripts that are in the sort of nugget stage where I have just kind of written a basic idea and I think about it for a long time and I start to outline it, and then it's not that I talk myself out of it, but I just never kind of find the time to move forward with it. It becomes less important to me than maybe another idea does.
Is that because you know that it's got to be something you're fully committed to, or else maybe you might end up not finishing it? Or
yeah, I mean, I think it's more like as an artist, it's always hard that there are all these jokes, and memes and things about like finishing a project versus starting a new project. There's a real kind of excitement and a rush with starting a new project. And once you're in the trenches and like you're working through and trying to solve problems in a script, that's not the exciting part. That doesn't feel good. So it's often easier to kind of start something new and to not finish something. But yeah, no, I don't think I ever fully feel like I've abandoned those ideas. I feel like, oh, someday I'll get around to coming back to this, but then maybe I don't, or maybe it hasn't happened yet. Still thinking about it.
Once an idea gets past the nugget stage, what's your writing process?
So again, I think for a while. First thing I do is I ponder it, because I think if I just have an idea and then I sit down and try to write it, it just comes out badly. That's not really the best scenario for me. So I spend some time pondering it. Usually in the middle of the night, I wake up and I have some thoughts about it. I type them into my phone. Or when I used to be more exercising in pre-pandemic days, if I was swimming or something like that, a time when you're kind of shutting your mind off, when you're not really thinking about anything, that's when the ideas start to pop up. And those kind of come together, and I start to just kind of take notes. It's like a bunch of little notes about what I want to do with the story or how I want to structure it. And then I really sit down and get dedicated to kind of outlining it. And usually the outline, it may not be complete. It may be just like, people have different ideas about what an outline means. Some people, an outline is a 20-page, a scene-by-scene structure of the entire movie. For me, it's more like, what happens in the beginning, what happens in the end, what are some things that kind of fill in the middle. And then I'm really interested in writing. I'm really interested in symmetry. That's usually how I approach writing. So I usually am writing the end and the beginning first. Those are the two pieces that I think are most important. And I want to make sure that there's some meaningful symmetry between those two. So, whatever I'm setting up in the beginning and whatever kind of story I want to tell in the beginning ends where it needs to end, that it drives home the themes or the thesis of the film in that ending. And then once I feel good about the beginning and the ending, then I'll go in and start filling in that outline. Sometimes it's just kind of writing summary, like a synopsis type of thing in kind of prose form. Sometimes it's actually doing a more scene by scene breakdown, like we should have a scene here where this happens, and I'll just write the scene header and kind of write summary, like here's some stuff that happens in the scene, and I'll just work to kind of fill in the story from there. Sometimes I'll do a full outline where I have every kind of piece put in. Sometimes I start writing once I have the beginning and ending and some stuff in the middle. Sometimes I'll actually just sit down and start writing from that point.
And why symmetry? Why is something being symmetrical very important to you?
I think symmetry is really, really important in film because I'm kind of a thesis-driven or a theme-driven writer. And so a lot of people I know are focused on kind of plot or character, or those are the most important elements. But I feel like it's really important to me, if I'm going to write a film, that I have something to say, that I have something that's important to me about this story, that's important to me about the journey that I'm going to take people on. that's going to connect with people in a way that it connects with me. And so for me, the best way to do that is to look at, where is the starting point of the journey? Where do I want people to start from? Where do I want people to get on board my train? And then, where do I need to take them so that they have the experience that I want them to have, or understand the themes, or have the type of, my goal is to really get people to have an introspective experience. It's not really about the characters in the thing. It's more about like, what can I do in this story or with this structure to make people have some kind of internalization of it, or thoughts about their own lives or their own experiences. And I think Symmetry is really important for that kind of structure.
How do you know when you have a great idea?
I don't think I ever do know. I don't think it's important to know if you have a great idea. You just kind of, I have a million ideas, right? I make a list of a million ideas. Every other day I have a new idea for a movie. I just look at the one that speaks to me the most. I don't know if it's great. I don't know what great even means, but if I'm gonna write something, it has to be important to me. So I have to look at it and say, this is the concept, this is the story that I most want to tell, that I most want to share, that I think will convey what I want to convey, that will, in a way, expose myself in the way that I want to expose myself, to other people, so that they can maybe learn something or think about something. But I don't know whether that makes it great or not. I just know that it's something that's important to me.
Do you need others' approval before you give a green light to something, to writing something, 110 pages?
For writing, no, not really. I think anything that is interesting to me, I'll write it. I assume most of the time that anything I'm writing is just going to basically sit in a drawer. It's not going to get made. Very few of the things that I write actually end up going into production, and I would sort of put them out in the world for other people to read. But usually I'll finish a draft and then I'll be like, okay, I'll sit on this for a while and think about whether I want to do something with it. But it's not polished enough to send around or something, to do anything else with it other than have it kind of sit. And I'm okay with that. That's okay for me. That's part of the process of kind of finding what it is that is most important to me. I feel like if I don't write a number of different stories, I'm not going to find the one that really works in the end for me. So that's fine.
How do you know when a screenplay is finished?
Is a screenplay ever finished? I don't think so. It's finished when it has to be finished, when we have to start turning it into a production. And even then, I don't think it's really finished, because if we're making a movie, and I guess I'm talking about this from the perspective of if we're actually producing the film. If we're actually producing the film, it's finished, we can send it out to actors, we can start figuring out how to actually get the production moving. But we're often doing rewrites after the fact. We shoot stuff and we realize, oh, something is not working, or we need to adjust something, or we need to add something, or there's an opportunity here. And so we're always willing to keep crafting and keep reshaping it. If I'm not producing it, it's still never finished. It's something that, at some point I say, okay, well, this is in pretty good shape. Let me send it around and get some notes on it and see how people respond to it, maybe put it in competition somewhere. And then, I get feedback usually from that, and either incorporate that or keep it in a notes file and don't get around to incorporating it, depending on, how things are going. But yeah, I don't think, nothing is really ever finished.
And when you write something, let's suppose you commit to writing a feature screenplay, you never imagine I'll take this to producers. It's always, I'm going to be making this myself.
No, I definitely do write some sort of spec screenplays as well, but it's less frequent for me. When I'm writing a spec screenplay, it's a whole different mindset for me, because I have to think about things differently. I have to think about the story differently. I have to make sure that what's on the page is going to connect with people in a way that I don't have to worry quite as much if it's something we're producing, because sometimes we know our stylistic ideas or our structural ideas will overcome or are more important than kind of the words on the page.